Good morning, students. In the previous part of my discussion, I talked about Marxist criticism or Marxism. Now we shall deal with one more important phase in the development of literary criticism, that is gender criticism or feminism. Gender criticism is inspired by Marxism. It analyzes literature through the lens of socially constructed gender roles. It looks at literature from the perspective of a woman. The largest part of gender criticism is feminism. Therefore, I said it looks at literature from the perspective of a woman or from a feminine perspective. Feminism critiques and seeks to correct women's subordination to men in society. So, in simple words, in its most basic form, feminism is all about equality. The term gender criticism stands for a perspective of the analyzing literature, a perspective for viewing literature from gender point of view, irrespective of man or woman. But while feminism exclusively is an example of gender criticism in which women becomes important. So a newer segment of gender criticism looks for the influence of homosexuality within texts. So gender criticism is not restricted to merely feminism, but the largest part of gender criticism is feminism. That's what we need to understand. Therefore, we are using the term feminism here. But however, the new kind of segment of gender criticism has come into being, which looks at the influence of homosexuality within texts. And the research of this type is very difficult because homosexuality was largely suppressed in Europe and America. Even in India, only recently the Supreme Court has passed a verdict in which it is now accepted legally. And earlier, gender homosexuality was a kind of taboo. It wasn't discussed openly, even in Europe and America until recent decades. But when we talk about feminism, to speak of feminism as a theory is already a reduction. Means in terms of its theory, feminism might be categorized into three general groups. Means there are three different groups of feminism. Of course, this reduction in terms of groups is not a reality as a historical moment for centuries, but for the sake of understanding, feminism can be categorized into three general groups. The first group means the first theory are theories having an essentialist focus, which includes psychoanalytic and French feminism. Second group is theories aimed at defining or establishing a feminist literary canon, or theories seeking to reinterpret and revision of literature and culture, history, etc., from a less patriarchal point of view or stand, which can be this particular theory is termed as gynocriticism or liberal feminism. And then there is a third group of feminism in which we have theories focusing on sexual difference and sexual politics, which includes gender studies, lesbian studies, cultural feminism, radical feminism, and socialist or materialist feminism. Okay, of course, here I'm just referring to the major categories. I'm not going to into details of these things because that is not my concern in this part of my discussion. Later, when will study or when we are going to study feminist criticism, we shall have a detailed discussion on it. The key terms that we need to understand in terms of gender criticism and feminism are uh, androgyny. Androgyny is a term taken from women's studies. It suggests a world in which sex roles are not rigidly defined. It is a state in which the man in every woman and the woman in every man. We refer to the terms. So, in the previous discussion, could be integrated and freely expressed. That was the, I think we talked about the terms like, so just let me take you back to Marxist criticism, wherein we have talked about these terms. While talking about archetypes, we had referred to anima is a woman, a male personality or man's image of woman, and animus are the two terms that we talked about, anima and animus. Anima stands for a woman in man, and animus stands for a man in woman. So the term androgyny refers to this. So there is the man in every woman and a woman in every man. And this could be integrated and freely expressed. A man can talk about a woman and a woman can talk about a man. And this term is used more frequently in the 1970s to describe a blurring or combination of gender roles so that neither masculinity or femininity is dominant. So every man has a woman in himself, and every woman has a man in herself. So there is no dominance as such. And they started talking about homosexuality and all. Another important term is backlash. It has the term may have originated with Susan Paluti. It refers to a movement away from or against feminism. Backlash is a movement away from or against feminism. Then there is a creature feminine. A creature feminine, which literally means women's writing. A creature feminine means women's writing. It's a French term. It is a philosophy that promotes women's experiences and feelings to the point that it strengthens the work. So we can talk about the works of Helen Sixos, and she used the term for the first time in the essay the Laugh of the Medusa, in which she asserted that women must write herself, must write about women, and bring women to writing. So this is what a creature feminine is. Then we refer to essentialism. Essentialism is the term taken from women's studies. It is the belief in a uniquely feminine sense. Means what is being a woman? There are certain essential qualities. These essences or essential qualities exist above and beyond cultural conditioning. So the mirror image of biologism, a biological image of a woman, for which for centuries justified the operation of women by proclaiming the natural superiority of man. So man is superior to women because of the biological structure. Then there is another term that is gynocentrics. Gynocentrics means actually this term was coined by the feminist scholar Ellen Shorter. She was the American feminist who defined the term gynocentrics as the process of constructing a female framework for analysis of women's literature in order to develop a new models for interpretation or new models of interpretation, which should be based on the study of female experience rather than to adopt a male models and theories. So that is what gynocentrics is. Then there is another term that is Geosens. Geosens is the term most commonly associated with again Helen Sixow, who used the word to mean actually this word is taken from John Lacan. While using this term, Sixow follows Lacan's psychoanalytic paradigm, which argues that we already talked about Lacan's psychoanalytic model, in which he talks about the real and the what you call the symbolic order, etc. So here he argues that a child must separate from its mother's body, that is the real, in order to enter into the symbolic order. So because of this, Sixaw says the female body in general becomes unpresentable in language. It's what can't be spoken or written in the phallocentric symbolic order. Further, Sixaw makes a leap from the material body to the female body in general. She leaps from the female body to a female sexuality, saying that female sexual pleasure, that is what Johnson sees, is unpresentable within the phallocentric symbolic order. Phallogo means male-dominated symbolic order. Means women cannot talk about her sexual pleasure, her desires, etc. So that is what the term Johnson's refer to. Further, patriarchy is the term associated with gender criticism. Patriarchy stands for a kind of sexism perpetuated by a system of patriarchy, male-dominated structures and social arrangements elaborate the oppression of women. Patriarchy, by its definition, exhibits centrism means male-centeredness. It is supported by patriarchy. Androcentrism assumes that male norms operate throughout all social institutions, and it becomes the standard to which all persons adhere. All people have to follow that standard. So that is what patriarchy is. Patriarchy means male-dominated society. Then we talk about phallologocentrism. Phallologocentrism means language ordered around an absolute word, logos. Logos means language, word, which is masculine, means phallic. These are the Latin terms that we need to understand, which this word, the language, logos means language, phallo means masculine, the language of masculine, we can say, which systematically excludes, disqualifies, or what we call denigrates, diminishes, silences the feminine. So this is how we understand the term phallologocentrism. And we can understand second and third wave feminism. Second wave feminism refers to a period of feminist thought that originated around the 1960s and was mainly concerned with independence and greater political action to improve women's rights. And the third wave feminism is a feminist movement that arguably began in the early 90s. Unlike second wave feminism, it largely focused, actually, second wave feminism focused on the inclusion of women in traditionally male dominated areas. Third wave feminism seeks to challenge and expand common definitions of gender and sexuality. Another term is semiotic, which is associated with Julia Kristeva, which makes a distinction between the semiotic and symbolic modes of communication. Symbolic means how we normally think of language, grammar, syntax, logic, etc. And semiotic means non-linguistic aspect of language, which express drives and affects. So the semiotic label includes rhythms and sounds and the way they can convey powerful yet indefinable emotions. So this is how we understand uh, gender criticism as one of the important uh, phase in the development of literary criticism.